There lives a ghost in this village that eats people's heads. But the real fear is hidden not in the water, but in people's hearts. The story takes us to a small village in 19th century Vietnam. This is a place where even mornings are covered in fog, and there is a strange fear in the air. For the past 5 years, the people here have been living with a shadow. A terrifying legend they call the drowning ghosts. The villagers believe that in the deep water of a lake lives a vengeful spirit. This spirit doesn't just kill people, it drags them underwater and eats their heads. 8 persons have been its victims so far, and their headless bodies were found on the shore. Because of this, the entire village is trembling with fear. Amidst this terrifying atmosphere, we meet Moon. Moon is a cloth merchant. A strong and courageous woman who loves her niece more than her own life. But Moon's world is shaken when one day her niece suddenly disappears. 5 days pass. Moon searches for her everywhere but finds no trace of her. Just one thing is found, one of her niece's slippers, floating on the shore of that cursed lake. The villagers and the district chief immediately assume that this is also the work of the drowning ghost, and that it must have killed the girl like the others. Because everyone feels this could be the ghost's work. The chief forbids his soldiers from searching for the child. He says this is beyond human capability. But Moon refuses to accept this. She believes in logic. She cannot blindly believe anything. It is here that she notices a very important thing that everyone else was ignoring. In all the previous cases, the bodies were found on the shore, but her niece's body was not there, it was missing. She feels that maybe her niece is still alive. She must be alive, or perhaps this is the work of a human, not a ghost. So, she calls for help from someone she knows. A detective who operates on science and observation, not hearsay. He is famous for solving difficult cases where people believe it could be a ghost's work. But this detective always uncovers human greed and crime. His name is Kien. Kien arrives in the village with a sword and a sharp mind. As soon as he enters the village, he feels its frightening atmosphere. Small temples are built everywhere, and the air is filled with the smoke of incense. Kien notices another strange thing. Some people in the village are suddenly suffering from nosebleeds. Kien goes straight to the detective chief's house to meet Moon. There, Moon is arguing with the guards, begging for help. Kien intervenes and, using his authority, helps Moon. We learn that Moon and Kien have a past connection. Kien was the one who arrested Moon's corrupt ex-husband. Yet, Moon respects Kien's honesty. Moon tells him everything, that the chief is useless, people are scared, and her niece is missing. Now both go to her niece's house, where she lived with her father. Kien immediately starts his investigation. He finds out that Moon's niece was a very quiet and simple girl who had no enemies. But a big clue is found. 2 weeks before her disappearance, a thief had tried to break into her room. The girl had shown bravery and had struck the thief's hand with something sharp. After which, the thief ran away. The thief didn't steal anything significant, just some earthen pots and a jewelry box. Kien checks the room and sees that the girl's clothes and savings are still there, meaning she didn't run away. She was forcibly taken. Kien decides to go to the lake where the slipper was found. Moon wants to come along, but Kien refuses to avoid rumors and to keep Moon safe. At the lake, Kien meets a fisherman who tells him that the chief has called a sorcerer named Shaman Din to cleanse the village. Kien doesn't believe in magic or black magic, but he still goes to meet the sorcerer. The sorcerer gives Kien a protection amulet and frightens him, saying the ghost is bloodthirsty. When Kien asks about the vegetation there, specifically about the xanthan fruit that was stuck on Moon's niece's slipper, Moon arrives. She says she will be involved in this investigation. She tells him that the xanthan fruit grows in only one place, Vietnamese Falls, a secluded waterfall in the hills. Kien and Moon head towards the waterfall. Upon reaching there, the matter becomes more serious. Kien finds fresh blood on the rocks. Moon panics seeing this. She thinks it's her niece's blood. Kien tries to calm her down, saying it might be an animal's. But he also knows things aren't right. They search until night but find nothing. That night, Kien stays in a guest house. All over the village, the smoke from that sorcerer's incense is spread. Trying to sleep, Kien starts experiencing the same symptoms as the villagers. His nose starts bleeding. He can't sleep. He gets very restless but eventually falls asleep. He has a very terrifying dream. In the dream, he sees Moon's niece, the girl, near the water. Suddenly, rotten hands emerge from the water and start dragging her down. Kien tries to save her, but when he pulls her up, he is holding the girl's severed head. Kien wakes up trembling. Now, the line between reality and dream is blurring. The next morning, Kien shakes off the bad dream and returns to the facts. He goes to the market to find out where the girl was last seen. A witness says that on the day she disappeared, she closed her shop early and went towards the waterfall. But the biggest thing was that just before leaving, the girl had an argument with a woman named Chuayet. Chuayet is no ordinary girl. She is the district chief's daughter. Rich, arrogant, and powerful. Kien goes to question her. Chuayet admits she argued with the girl, but says it was about a cloth order and has nothing to do with anything else. She says the girl threatened her that if Chuayet didn't pay, she would take the money from a man named Thak. Here a new name emerges. Thak. Thak is an artist who makes earthen pots, lives in the bamboo forests, and is also Chuayet's fiancé. Kien and Moon go to Thak's studio. There were very lovely and beautiful earthen pots kept there. Exactly the same style of pots that were found in the girl's room. Kien pressures Thak to tell the truth. Now here, he begins to tell a very sad story. He says that his and Chuayet's engagement was decided by their parents in childhood. He was not happy with this relationship. He was in love with Moon's niece, the girl who is now missing. She was a girl from a poor family. Thak considered her his soulmate. He had even asked the chief for permission to make her his second wife. But the chief and Chuayet saw this as an insult and got angry. Thak was planning to break off his engagement with Chuayet and elope with that girl. Now, with this conclusion, everything changes. A motive emerges. Chuayet was jealous. She felt humiliated. Her engagement was breaking because of that girl. Kien understands that the argument about clothes was a complete lie. The real fight was about Thak. Chuayet had also spread the rumor that the girl was going to have Thak's child so that she would be defamed. While Thak says they never had such a relationship. Now here, Kien summarizes the entire story. The thief who broke into Moon's niece's room was no coincidence. Perhaps Thak, fearing defamation, sent a thief to steal those pots to erase the evidence of their relationship. Or maybe the thief was sent by someone else. Kien remembers the thief had wounds on his hand. He now just had to find a man with injured hands. For this, Moon devises a plan. She organizes a knife-throwing competition in the market so that the suspect would come forward. The plan works. Kien sees a man named Dong, a known thief whom the chief had once beaten severely. Dong had a bandage on his hand. Kien follows him and finds the stolen pots in his hut. Kien captures him. The man named Dong, out of fear, spills everything. He says he did steal, but didn't kill the girl. He starts begging to be let go because the chief had ruined his life, and then he reveals a huge secret. The night he went to steal, he saw Lady Vong, the chief's wife and Chuayet's mother, secretly leaving the missing girl's father's house. This means the chief's entire family is involved in this conspiracy. Kien goes to confront chief's wife and his daughter. The atmosphere becomes very tense. Kien lies that he has a witness who saw Chuayet meeting the girl at the waterfall. Under this pressure, Chuayet breaks down. She cries and confesses. She admits she met the girl at the waterfall to tell her to stay away from Thak. They had a fight. Chuayet says in anger she pushed the girl. She fell and her head hit a stone. Seeing the blood, Chuayet thought she had killed the girl and ran away in fear. Lady, the chief's wife, steps in to save her daughter. She says it was an accident, and maybe after she ran away, the drowning ghost made the body disappear. Chuayet is arrested, but the body is still missing. That evening, Kien was terribly tired. The incense smoke was deepening again, and he was starting to hallucinate. He starts seeing the drowning ghost in his room, a headless shadow attacking him. His deputy arrives just in time and brings him to his senses. The deputy had brought the old case files that Kien had requested. Kien was looking for a pattern. He reads that 30 years ago, a family of 14 people were considered traitors, and for this reason, they were beheaded. And the person who gave the order for this execution was none other than the young chief. While Kien is looking at the past, something very bad happens in the present. Finally, a headless body is found on the shore of the lake. Panic spreads throughout the village. Moon becomes extremely distressed. She thinks it's her niece. The chief's family breathes a sigh of relief. They think this will prove the ghost killed the girl and Chuayet will be saved from murder charges. But Kien looks at the body carefully. He sees something the villagers couldn't. The body's hands and feet skin was completely smooth. It had no wrinkles. If a body has been in water for a week, it should be wrinkled. Moreover, the head was cut off in one stroke with a sharp weapon, whereas the previous victims had been completely torn apart. Kien realizes this is not the girl, Moon's niece. This is someone else's fresh body, planted there wearing that girl's clothes so that the case would be closed. If this body is fake, it means that girl, Moon's niece, is still alive. Kien understands that Dorng, the thief, was not telling everything. Kien finds a jewelry box with Dorng. He finds out that Dorng and a maid from the chief's house are in cahoots. They are blackmailing Lady Vong. Actually, Dorng had witnessed the fight at the waterfall when Chuayet ran away thinking the girl was dead. Then Dorng saw that the girl was alive but unconscious. Instead of saving her, Dorng hid her in a cave so he could extort money from the chief's wife. Dorng himself threw the slipper in the lake to make the ghost story seem real. And later, he killed an innocent girl and placed the fake body there so he could take a good sum of money from the lady under the pretext of erasing evidence. Lady, to save her daughter and her honor, agrees to give money to Dorng. But in her heart, she had already planned to kill Dorng. She goes to the forest with a bag of money. Kien and Moon secretly follow her. They reach near a cave. Dorng had tied up Moon's niece, the girl, there. He brings her out. Lady, the chief's wife, tries to trap Dorng, but things go wrong and violence erupts. Kien steps forward. Dorng attacks Kien with a sword. A fierce fight ensues between them. Kien, who is still under the effect of the poisonous incense, finds it difficult to fight because he keeps seeing the ghost. Meanwhile, Lady Vong, seeing an opportunity, tries to kill the girl to end this matter forever. Moon, like a lioness fighting for her niece, clashes with Lady Vong. At the very last moment, when Dorng is about to kill Kien, Kien uses his mind and pushes Dorng. Dorng falls back and dies impaled on spikes. Moon also subdues Lady Vong. The girl is finally saved. The police arrive and arrest Lady Vong, and later Chuayet, for their crimes. The kidnapping case is solved. The girl, Moon's niece, and Moon are reunited. The true colors of the chief's family are exposed to all, but Kien is still not satisfied. He is not convinced that the drowning ghost is a real matter. The mystery of the drowning ghost and the deaths of the previous 8 people is still not solved. The last case with the fake body is understood. But what about the other 8? Kien turns his attention back to the incense. He takes a sample to a doctor. The doctor confirms that this incense contains a herb named Mankatar, a fictional name meaning confusion demon weed. It affects the brain, creates fear, causes hallucinations, and brings nosebleeds, meaning the ghost was not a spirit. It was just a trick of the mind, orchestrated by that sorcerer. Kien immediately rushes to catch that sorcerer, but he has disappeared. Another body is found in the village. This body is none other than the district chief's. His head was also missing. Kien understands that the whole truth is connected to that 30-year-old massacre. The chief, who had 14 people killed for being traitors. In that family, there were actually 15 people. 1 child survived, who had hidden and watched his entire family die. That child grew up to become the sorcerer. He came back to the village not to save anyone, but to wreak havoc. He drugged the entire village with that poisonous incense. He kept them in fear and confusion. Under the guise of the drowning ghost story, he selectively killed those responsible for his family's death. This was his final victim, the man who had given the order to wipe out his family. Kien finds cold weather jacket lint in the sorcerer's hut. He understands he has fled north, where it's cold. The movie ends with this scene where Kien and his deputy mount horses and set off north as well. They are going to catch that serial killer who, using the guise of a ghost, completed his bloody revenge. This was not a ghost story. It was a terrifying tale of human pain and revenge.